2 days ago, I mentioned how the US dollar versus the Canadian dollar could rally from a confluence of support here on Thursday. And that's exactly what we're seeing here so far from this pair. So in today's video, we're going to talk about that. I'll show you where I think this market is going, some trades that I put on today, 2 trades, in fact, this week, including the dollar CAD and also oil. And we're also going to go over the DXY, the US dollar index chart. So the dollar CAD, we talked about this 2 days ago, and what I mentioned there was that we had this confluence of support for this pair coming in down here around 143.50. Now this extends as low as 143.35 or so off of these lows. We talked about this sweep of the lows here last week, and this is something that I pointed out to VIP members when the market was back here. I was looking for a sweep of these lows. I entered long through this area, and I also entered long again. I added to that position on yesterday's dip down here at 143.11, which I did announce in real time in the VIP group in Discord. So if you guys do want to join us, check out the link in the description of this video for 85% off lifetime access, or if you're on the website, click on that join VIP link. So I talk about all of my trades in real time in there with entries, stop loss, and take profit. So looking at the dollar CAD, we can see that so far today we are getting a nice bounce from this area. You can see where here on Wednesday, the market did hold above it after dipping below. So we got those US CPI numbers coming in a little bit softer than forecast, but a nice recovery here from the dollar CAD. Now, you might be wondering, why is the dollar CAD up so significantly today, despite the fact that right now the DXY is sitting at essentially break even on the day? And it comes down to what's going on with oil. So I alluded to this 2 days ago. And in fact, I even said that oil could be the catalyst here for the dollar CAD to finally move toward my final target up there at these range highs going all the way back to 2016. So you can see that up here, we've got these 2 highs. And this has been the case here for the dollar CAD for essentially the last decade. This has just been one big range here for this pair. And you can see where now we're coming off of these lows down here. We had 2 years of consolidation. We had the weekly breakout above 138.70. We talked about all of this as it was occurring, and I remain bullish toward this area around 146.70. So these are the range highs up here. We haven't yet seen the market come up there and test that area. Of course, there are no guarantees of that, but given the uptrend we've seen here, the consolidation, the fact that this is a very significant high up here, 2 touches going all the way back to 2016, I still think that we are going to see the dollar CAD test this area. And this was a, must hold area, in a sense for bulls, right? We talked about this a couple days ago. So again, I am long this market, up nicely so far and looking for these range highs around 144.50 and then also 146.70. Now, let's talk about oil first. I would talk about the DXY first, but I really want to highlight oil today just because this was the catalyst that I mentioned 2 days ago for the dollar CAD. The Canadian dollar is positively correlated with the prices of oil. So this right here, this consolidation from this pair, the entire reason for this comes down to what's been happening with oil. We know that oil prices have been surging, and so that has kept the Canadian dollar supported. Because if it hadn't, given the strength of the US dollar recently, this pair would have already been up here in this area. But we've seen this sideways consolidation because oil has been rallying. Now, let's take a look at that because the market did come into some critical resistance here this week, and I talked about this the other day, which this is also, if you look at the weekly time frame, I've taken these off just to kind of clean things up, but you can see where we do have an area through here as well, where this is a critical level here on the weekly. Okay, we've got this trend line off of these lows. You can see where it was serving as resistance back here on the weekly. And once again, into that level. And it's not just this too. You can also see this off of a descending trend line up here off of these highs. Okay, so notice where we get this level coming in somewhere through here. You could draw it up here off that high or include both of these touches back here. But essentially what you have is this triangle pattern that broke down, okay, back here, right? So we saw the breakdown through here and we got the retest here and also retest again this week. So this is what I talked about the other day for oil, and you can see where we are getting a decent rejection so far. Now, if you look at the daily, okay, I'm going to take these 2 levels off just to clean things up because you really don't need those to trade this market on the daily because this is a very clean range from this market where you can see we've got range highs back here and we've got the range low. Now, the mid-range, the 50%, comes in right here at this pivot, okay? So a very, very clean range for oil. Now, what you'll notice is that yesterday closed above this area around 78.40. And so far, the market is putting in a rather aggressive pullback. So I also entered short. So the second trade I put on just today, I entered in short here up in this area around 78.32. Okay, so I was watching the 4-hour time frame, watching it close below this area here. It did look rather top heavy. And the same thing too with Brent. You can see where UK oil was also doing something similar, where if you look here at the Brent chart, you'll see something very similar. And you can even remove these. I just have these on there from before because that was a breakout there from Brent oil. But what you'll notice here from Brent too, we've got this high back here and we've got these highs right through here. We had the close above yesterday, very aggressive pullback today. So if the market were to lose this here today, we have a failed breakout. And that's probably enough for a move down here toward this consolidation, down here around 76 for Brent, and potentially that December imbalance around 74. So a very similar situation for WTI, US oil, right, where we had the market sweep these highs and it's starting to correct. So again, I am short here. It's in profit. I'm not going to celebrate yet just because I know that oil can be very volatile. So this could change. But I would say that if this market were to get below areas like this through here, so off of this closing price back here, right? And I'll circle all this back, guys, to the dollar CAD because this is what's driving the dollar CAD higher today. But if we see WTI get below this area here, this closing price from back here on the daily, also these highs, right around 77.60, if we see it close below here today, then we have a failed breakout. And that's probably good enough for a move back here toward the consolidation, potentially 72 and also that weekly imbalance around 70.50. All right, so this is what's driving the dollar CAD. If we get this move from oil, that pullback down here into this consolidation, then that is probably going to be good for a dollar CAD breakout of this range. Okay, because remember that 144.50 for the dollar CAD, these highs up here, this is what is going to be required, right? A high time frame close above here to open up that 146.70 area. And this is why we're seeing the dollar CAD rally today so significantly, despite the fact that the DXY, the US dollar index, is down. Okay, so right now, it is actually down about 0.07%. So not much, and it's still holding above support. However, it is looking relatively weak here. And so that's why we're seeing the dollar CAD rally. So when we look at the DXY, guys, a couple of scenarios here for this market that I'm eyeing. First of all, we know that last week closed just above 109.50, but not convincingly enough to call that support this week. Now, the two scenarios I'm watching, okay, because I've talked about this before, but you guys know about this channel here that goes back to these highs and lows from 2023, right? So we have these highs and lows, and we didn't quite see the market come up here and test this level. Now, it could be a little bit lower. There's no guarantee that we see this, but it is still open, right? So a couple of scenarios that I'm watching for the DXY. The first one is a pullback out of this trend line. And this trend line too, guys, I also shared this with VIP members yesterday before we got the retest. When the market was back here, I said, watch this level down here on Wednesday following USDCAD. And sure enough, we got a decent little bounce there. But if this fails, if we see the DXY get below this, then we are probably looking at a sweep of some of these lows. Now, if that happens, we do have some imbalances, also called FVGs, fair value gaps, down here around the 107 area. So first off, what's interesting here is that you can see off the closing price back here in this area, we never really got a full retest down here. And these are essentially equal lows because we never saw one of these lows take out this one back here, right? They're all pretty equal. So you do have liquidity sitting below these lows through here that could become a factor if we get the breakdown from this trend line. This is, again, this is the first scenario. I'll go through the second scenario here in a moment. But if we were to see the DXY get below this area, currently right around 108.7 on the high time frames, that could set up that move down here to sweep these lows into that December weekly FVG. Then potentially from there, we get a bounce. Now, there's also a quarterly FVG down here, in this area, fair value gap, right around 106. But this would be the first stop for the DXY. And then from there, there's the potential that we get a bounce back here toward this area, right? And then from there, we get a local top potentially for the DXY. Now, the second scenario, okay, and we have to, respect what's on the chart currently because right now, this market is still above this trend line. So while that's the case, we still have the potential, okay, for a move up here toward this 110.50 area that I've talked about now for weeks before we get a local top for the DXY, okay? So that would be the second scenario, right? So first scenario would be to see a breakdown from here and a sweep of these lows before we get a bounce. And the second scenario would be the move up here into this area, holding above this trend line, moving up toward 110.50, and then we get a rejection. Okay, so this is obviously going to matter for the dollar CAD, but as I said, guys, really it comes down to oil, right? This pullback from oil, if this accelerates, then you could even see the DXY start to pull back some, and watch pairs like the dollar CAD stay supported because of what's happening with oil, because of what's happening with WTI, because of what's happening with Brent. Okay, these moves right here so far are looking pretty bearish for oil. Okay, it could change. It obviously could change, but right now this is looking pretty bearish for oil, and that could have a negative effect for the Canadian dollar. So even though we could see a pullback here from the DXY, guys, again, one of these two scenarios playing out, even though we could see some weakness from the DXY, it doesn't mean that the dollar CAD is going to pull back. In fact, what's going on with oil could be the catalyst to drive this market back toward 144.50 and then potentially that final target around 146.70. Now, lastly, we do have to entertain the potential for a breakdown here. What if we don't get that, right? And so for that, we have to look at this area down here, right? Pretty clear. If the market starts losing this area on the high time frames, then this idea, okay, could take a little longer to play out. But you have to keep in mind too that we have support right down here around 142.65. So we've talked about this before, but you can see that going all the way back here to this range back here in 2020, right? So this right here, the top of this range is currently support for the dollar CAD. So as long as the market is above this right here, which if you go toward the weekly time frame, you'll see this a little better. But as long as the market is above these highs right back here, then I am going to remain bullish on the dollar CAD. Okay. It doesn't mean that we can't see, a breakdown from this trend line and this idea, right, take a little bit longer to play out. But I am going to remain bullish though. I mean, especially with the market, as I said 2 days ago, coming into this area right around 143.35. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell for notifications. Don't forget to join us in VIP, claim your 85% off lifetime access. See the link in the description of this video, or if you're on the website, click on that join VIP link. I will see you on the inside. Trade well out there, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.